Welcome to the presentation for Management 320, Foundation Entrepreneurship. This presentation is fairly straightforward, has some key objectives. First, we're going to define entrepreneurship. Then we're going to learn about some of the benefits as well as the drawbacks of becoming an entrepreneur, because I know many of you are thinking about going in that direction. We're going to take a step back and think more broad terms about some of the current trends in entrepreneurship, and ultimately end with the most important lesson you will ever learn about entrepreneurship. So let's get started. We begin with our definition. I'm going to start our definition with the one who creates a new business in the face of risk and uncertainty for the purpose of achieving profit and growth by identifying opportunities and assembling the necessary resources to capitalize on them. Now that's a long definition, but there's some key points you want to emphasize with it. First off, a new business. Entrepreneurs are trying to create something that doesn't currently exist. We're not saying they're trying to reinvent the wheel, but they want to create something out of nothing. There is the idea of risk and uncertainty because there are no guarantees in business, and there are even less guarantees when you're an entrepreneur and trying to create something new. We're not going to discount the idea about profit and growth because that is important. If you're not profitable as a business, you will not sustain yourself, you will not exist. And then we're going to get down to the idea of identifying opportunities, assembling resources to capitalize them. And it's important to recognize that when we say resources, many times entrepreneurs don't have it. They have to find a way to gain these resources, whether it be financial, human resources, and whatnot. Also on the slide I have down on the bottom left corner, another definition, a more simplified definition about entrepreneurship that I use for some of my other classes. The process of taking risks to try to create a new enterprise. And notice there, try is bold and underlined because in entrepreneurship, it is the attempt. Because you will fail from time to time, and that's okay. Because nothing worthwhile simply is created on the first time you give it a shot. Other definitions within that slide can be something a little bit more interesting, like somebody who sees new opportunity for product service and launches a business to try to realize it. The idea that the entrepreneur has to have that vision of something out there, the opportunity seeking. And the last one, the bottom one, going more towards the resources definition, process by which individuals pursue opportunities without regards to resources they currently control, because they may not have the capital, the technical knowledge to put their ideas into place, but they find a means to do it anyways. The last definition, which is a little bit more of an entertaining, more of a joke, is the one off on the right, which says an entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to work 16 hours a day to keep from working 8 hours a day for someone else. And that's important because many people say the reason they want to start their own business is so they only need to work when they want to work. Well, keep that in mind because entrepreneurs, they work more hours, usually for less pay than if they're working for somebody else. The slide I have right here is a little bit outdated, 2007, but I don't think the numbers have changed all that much. For small business owners and entrepreneurs, you can see the vast majority work more than 40 hours a week. Now, a typical work day in the corporate world is supposed to be about 40 hours, but for the small business owners, only about 10% of them work in that area. The rest, many more hours. So always keep that in mind. If the reason you want to be an entrepreneur is because you want to work less, you're going in the wrong direction. Entrepreneurs work more, they work longer hours, they work harder, but at the same time, many of them seem to enjoy what they're doing. So on that, let's look at some of the possible benefits of being an entrepreneur. I remember these are just general benefits. Everybody can find their own value in different things. First off at the top, personal and professional control. Entrepreneurs, when you start your own business, you are the person in charge, both your professional and professional life. Oftentimes because the two are molded into one. You had the idea to say when it is you want to work, what decisions you want to make for your company or for your business. It's up to you because you are the founder, you are the owner, you are the person in charge. It gives you the opportunity to pursue various passions you have. For example, my brother, he has a passion for spearfishing. Based off of that passion, he pursued his own business, Hammerhead Spear Guns, which started from his garage and has now grown into a company that sells equipment, diving equipment around the world. He's following his passions. He many times says it himself. It's not making him a lot of money, but it's allowing him to live the lifestyle and pursue the things in life that he wants to pursue. Self-actualization, personal growth, it is a challenge, and taking on the challenge of starting a new business or new venture is difficult, and you grow from it. You learn new skills, new talents. You become more capable, not just in the technical skills, but in your own assessment and value of yourself and what it is that you can achieve. Socially well accepted. Notice in parentheses, maybe. Today, in our pop culture, entrepreneurs are the cool in thing. It's the fad. It is, for the most part, socially well accepted, but it hasn't always been that way. In fact, the previous generation, the entrepreneur was known as a dirty word, and in some cultures it still exists. Because remember, the entrepreneur doesn't have a stable income. It's always asking people for resources, whether it be money, technical, human resources, because they're trying to create something that oftentimes fail, and they tend to do it without having the means that to actually accomplish it on their own. Entrepreneurs historically fail a lot of time, and in society, we tend not to like those who keep failing and failing and failing. But when they're successful, we can see they can create many wonderful things from both a business and social perspective. Potential financial wars, sort of. On average, the entrepreneur makes less money than if he were to work for himself, or work for somebody else. However, by working for themselves, they tend to accrue those other benefits. That being said, when they are successful, there is a potential to reap tremendous financial rewards and gains. There's an old saying that the only way you can become really rich in this world is to start your own business. That's not exactly true, but there is some truth to it. Entrepreneurs, whether successful or tremendously successful, do benefit from one unique component of the U.S. tax code. Our tax code is written specifically to benefit businesses and small business owners. In that perspective, entrepreneurs do financially benefit when they're able to leverage the tax code to benefit them. And the last one, make a difference in the world. By making a difference in the world, oftentimes pursuing your passion to make a difference in the world, small business owners, entrepreneurs, create jobs, create income, create economic activity, which I truly believe helps drive our society. There's also a component called social entrepreneurship, where a mission or part of what you're trying to do is actually geared for making impact in society, to be the change agents out there. Entrepreneurs are well suited to truly do that. That being said, there are also various drawbacks. There is tremendous financial uncertainty to being an entrepreneur because you never know where your next paycheck is coming from, particularly in the beginning, because it's hard and you're not necessarily getting paid a salary. And there's also no certainty that you'll be successful. There's that risk of losing your investment, the money you put down for your equipment, your inventory, and other necessities for your business. You can lose it all if things don't work right. You do work long hours, you do hard work. Granted, many people argue that they enjoy it because they're following their passions, but in terms of total hours and amount of effort, it usually far exceeds that for those who are working for somebody else. It can be a very low quality of life. Because when you're working long hours, working hard, never at home, always wondering about where your next paycheck's going to be, that puts stress on your life, on your family life, and on those around you. There's that tremendously high rate of failure, and we'll look at it a little bit later. Failure rates can range from 30% to 95%. There's incredible high stress levels as you're worrying not just about your business, but also your personal finances and the situation of those around you. If you've borrowed money, whether it be from the bank or from family, friends, or others, there's an obligation, the stress you have to compensate them, reward them, pay them back. Liability and responsibility. If your business does not succeed and incurs debts, you are responsible for it. In addition to the financial liability, there's the legal liability that what if your business, your idea, your efforts hurt or caused harm to an individual? Whether it be a product or even food service, if you make a mistake and you're serving people food and they get sick or worse, that's on you. Yes, there is a financial legal responsibility, but there's also a moral obligation not to hurt people. Responsibility, taking a few steps away from there, a little bit more backwards, encourage the idea that you are the one constantly making decisions. While it may be fine if you're making decisions for yourself, if you have employees, your decisions impact them. If people have left their jobs to join your new business and you fail, what happens to their life? You are partially responsible for them because they've left something good behind and now have nothing. Going back to number 4, low quality of life. One of the interesting things about entrepreneurship is most entrepreneurs tend to be, at least in our mindset, within the age between 25 and 45. Now imagine for most of us, between those ages of 25 and 45, there's a lot going on in your life. Some of you are looking about starting a family, buying a home, spending time with the kids. But if you're an entrepreneur and you have financial uncertainty, risk of losing your investment, long hours, hard work, high failure rates, high stress levels, high responsibilities and liabilities, at that important part of your life, it changes your perspective and causes a bit of dilemma. Nonetheless, despite these drawbacks, we see that there appears to be a growth in entrepreneurship. Some of these reasons for growth, and again I put these in parentheses, a question mark, because we're not exactly sure whether or not there's growing interest in entrepreneurship or just more awareness of entrepreneurship. Well, in today's society, we see our entrepreneurs as heroes. Hollywood, the media, tends to hold them up as people who are making an impact in the world, bringing new ideas, creations, new concepts, new businesses. In the bottom right corner, we have there Elon Musk, the founder of things like SpaceX, Tesla. Many people call him the modern day real life version of Tony Stark, Iron Man, as shown in Iron Man 2 when he was actually in the movie, because we see them as heroes. Entrepreneurial education. You're taking a class in entrepreneurship. When I was in school, they didn't even teach entrepreneurship. Not only does West Wapo offer it, we see at Manoa, at most of our campuses, there are many programs out there for entrepreneurship education in our universities, community colleges, as well as outside in non-traditional education opportunities. There are some demographic and economic factors which are pushing people towards starting their own businesses, and we'll cover those a little bit later with some statistics and data. This idea that America, we're shifting to being a service economy, and that's important because when we're a service economy, it's easier to start a business than when we're a manufacturing company. Because if you want to start a manufacturing business, imagine the cost involved to buy your own property, plant, equipment to build whatever it is you want to build. But if you're simply a service provider, whether it be tax services, business planning services, and so forth, it's easier for an individual who has that knowledge to take that forward to begin their business venture. Technological advancements, whether it be the internet, cloud, social media, and so forth, allows the individual person to reach more people, to either sell their products, find new markets, find new sourcing, communicate with the customers, which before required more than that one person could do. And lastly, independent lifestyles. Today, many of us are seeking to be more independent from the corporate perspective, to be on our own, doing things our own way, working as contract laborers, which in many ways means becoming an entrepreneur. Now, the Kauffman Foundation provides some wonderful stats that help us look at some of these factors in a little bit more detail. The Kauffman Foundation focuses on education, entrepreneurship, not necessarily together, but isn't afraid to put them together, as well as Kansas City, because that's where they're founded. In fact, the Kauffman Foundation's founder is a former owner of the Kansas City Royals. According to their statistics, they see, yes, there's probably this growth in entrepreneurship, but we've got to look at it a little bit more carefully. Because according to this graph coming from them, about 2007, 2008, we had the Great Recession. At that point, entrepreneurship spiked. And the reason why is because people were losing their jobs. So they had no other opportunity to earn their economic income. However, as the economy has gotten better, we see a slowdown in growth because people see there's other opportunities, not just to start their own business, but to work for somebody else because things are getting better. This really brings up the idea of opportunity entrepreneurship. Are you going into entrepreneurship because you see a new opportunity, idea out there that you feel can be important? Or are you going into entrepreneurship because you have no other options? Shown in this graph here, about 2007, 2008, we see this big drop in opportunity entrepreneurship. Because at that point, people were losing their jobs and had no other options than to start something on their own. More recently, we see opportunity entrepreneurship starting to climb back up. And that's a good thing. Because just like if you think about our dot-com bubble back in 1999, 2000, where the internet was this cool new rage, and people realized there are all these great, wonderful opportunities, and they're leaving their current jobs to start their own ventures. Notice how that's where it spiked. Today, slowly, we believe we're going back in that direction as people realize that we're starting businesses not because we have to, but because we want to, and see that there's something that encourages us to do so. Kauffman Foundation does run some statistics about the national rates of entrepreneurship. Some have been going up and some have been going down. Here we see the national average, what they put on their scale is 0.28, with Hawaii being at 0.34, so we're above average. That's a good thing, but that's also not that surprising. When you consider in Hawaii, we have some advantages, one being geographically isolated, so it creates more opportunities for small businesses to fill some of those missing niches. Also here in Hawaii, we know we have a very high cost of living, so people may look in their free time to find other means of earning an income. Some of the statistics can be interesting, like a national entrepreneurship rate. The highest for this particular year was 0.61 in Montana. The lowest was in Idaho. These numbers come from 2014, showing that it's around the world. Entrepreneurship, we see it's different places because of different political, economic, demographic, social trends. And that leads us to our discussion about diversity. Our book does a great job talking about diversity and entrepreneurship. I'm going to use some data and information coming from the Kauffman Foundation, which may have a different perspective on it, but allows us to think through about what diversity and what the future role of entrepreneurs in our society truly means as we move forward. So we're going to look at these 4 areas: age, gender, ethnic, and education diversity. Age diversity: the young generation, the mid-career transition, and the post-retirement people. Now, most of us tend to think, thanks to the media, that most of the entrepreneurs today are coming from that young generation. And that's not completely incorrect, but when you look at this graphic, you see, well, maybe not so much. What we do see is a lot of the older generations, as they have these changes in their careers, when they're leaving one of their job they've had for a long time, gained a lot of important skills and knowledge, they realize that they can use that to help transition themselves into a new direction for their career. They have that experience to maybe start a part-time position, a part-time job on their own. If you've been an accountant in a company for maybe 20 years, you know accounting very well, and you know there's a market out there for your accounting services. So you can create a part-time, start your own business to do some, maybe during tax season or other points, accounting services. And accounting services is a great small business because they tend to be some of the most profitable businesses out there. Post-retirement: when people retire, let's say you're retiring at 65, they feel, and they are correct, that they still can contribute more to our economy, to growth, to the world of business, because they have a wealth of experiences and knowledge. Well, just because they've left their company, retired, doesn't mean they can't start something new on their own. In fact, the younger generation, for all the media saying how great and wonderful you are for starting your business ideas, truth is, you don't understand as much of the world of business. You understand a lot of the technical, whether it be social media, internet, drones are coming up big, the technical aspects of new ideas, new concepts, new technology, but oftentimes a little bit weaker in the business side. Fortunately, those who have great ideas and are young, you can find that knowledge in others. Gender diversity, and I always start this one with my very politically incorrect question. True or false? Men are more successful entrepreneurs. And I gave the answer away because I said this is a very politically incorrect question. The answer is true. And the reason why is because we're not playing on a level playing field. The current business environment favors men. It may be wrong, but that's a fact of life. That being said, there is a growing acceptance of female entrepreneurs, and many people argue that female entrepreneurs are actually better suited for success in today's world, the changing world we're in. But we haven't gotten there. We're getting better. We're having better gender equity in the world of business, but it's not a level playing field. Female entrepreneurs, they're a fast-growing group. They recognize that entrepreneurship offers them opportunities that maybe they cannot achieve in the corporate world. Some of these opportunities include, if there is a quote glass ceiling out there, well, if you're your own boss, you don't have that glass ceiling unless you impose it on yourself. If you're a stay-at-home mom who needs to stay at home to take care of the family, but have a few extra hours, you can start your own business and go in that direction. I have several friends who are doing that and doing it quite well. Opportunities are there. It's just how you adapt to it. And those opportunities are allowing more female entrepreneurs to be successful in starting their own ventures. Ethnic diversity. What we're seeing here, and of course keep an eye on the demographic data, is impact of immigration on entrepreneurship. The Latino community, tremendous growth from about 2008 to 2010 in entrepreneurship, and still remain among these groups as being the leading group in terms of the most. A couple reasons come into play here. One is many of them tend to be more recent immigrants. On the positive side, some will talk about the immigrant perspective tends to bring a stronger work ethic. Also a little bit more of a risk-taking perspective, but by coming here, you're taking a risk. We're also seeing new markets open up within these communities. More importantly, when we look at specifically new entrepreneurs being immigrants as opposed to native born, we see again that spike. And there's another reasons. Again, just as mentioned previously, they tend to be coming here with less, seeking new opportunities. If you're going to leave your country, that's a risk-seeking behavior. Oftentimes they come here because they have an idea in mind that they want to bring forward. There is also a negative perception or perspective about why new entrepreneurs are more likely to be immigrants than native born. And one is economic opportunity. In today's society, if you want to work in corporate America, you're probably going to need to have certain credentials and education, hopefully a high school degree, college degree, and so forth. If you're an immigrant, don't necessarily have those. Don't necessarily have the language skills, operate well in a corporate environment. If you start your own business, you can find ways around it, but within a structured corporation, certain skills and experiences are becoming a prerequisite. And many times the new immigrants don't quite have those. Education. The question asked here is why the growth in less than high school entrepreneurs? That's pretty high. And usually when I ask this question, the reason or response I tend to get is, well, it's because, we're the young people who have new ideas, new perspectives on the world. We're not afraid to take risk, and all that is true. But there's another reason why. It has to go back to the opportunity. If you have less than a high school education and you enter the corporate world, are you going to find a really good job? Some, yes, but let's not look just at the exceptions. Let's look at the norm. If you're somebody who are hiring for your company, a human resource manager, and you had two identical candidates, one with a college degree and one with less than high school, chances are you're going to go with the one with a higher level of education because there's less uncertainty in the hiring process. The growth in less than high school entrepreneurs oftentimes comes because there's less economic opportunity for those, and they're forced to start their own business. Oftentimes this would be service. Oftentimes it wouldn't be full-time work, but piecemeal work here and there. That's not a good situation to be in. Yes, there are exceptions, but you don't want to base your life and career plans off of exceptions. Next thing we're going to talk about a little bit is about global entrepreneurship and where the U.S. stands compared to everyone else. Our textbook throws this little diagram out called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, or the GEM study, which looks at total entrepreneurship activity around the world. On average, they get a score of about 13, and the U.S., we're right about there. We're designated by the red arrow on the far right side of the screen. Other countries tend to be much more entrepreneurial, at least according to this definition. And though when you look at what the countries are, number one would be, looks like Zambia. Number two would probably be Ghana. This is really why it comes down to the definition of how you define entrepreneurial activity. In America, when we think of entrepreneurship, we think about starting companies and businesses. Their entrepreneurial activity can be seen more as running a food kiosk. I know Thailand used to be big and used to have very high score for total entrepreneurship activity. Opening a small shop, maybe a weekend shop, finding a means to provide for your families. In America, we have those other opportunities for economic employment. In some of these countries with high entrepreneurial activity, they don't have those opportunities. Therefore, individuals or families are forced to begin their own entrepreneurial activities in order to earn income, provide for the families. I often like to think a better metric is entrepreneurship friendly, or the GEDI score, Global Entrepreneurship and Development Index. Here, the US tends to perform much better because we have an environment that cultivates and encourages opportunities, risk taking for the entrepreneurs to be successful. America, we're number one here. And as you look through these lists of countries, you'll think these are the places you would traditionally think about as being good for entrepreneurs, a good place that you might want to start your own business. And the bottom scores, a little bit less. Now, while there may be a lot of economic activity going on in the bottom 10 countries, it's an economic activity out of necessity. Whereas for the top 10 countries, more towards opportunity. And that's where we want to focus, we hope. Now, the number one lesson, as I promised to in the key objectives, that I can tell you about entrepreneurship and perhaps life in general, is really a story or lesson about failure. In entrepreneurship, failure is common. I'm not saying you have to like it. I am not saying failure is a good thing, or rather failure is a given and is a natural part of the creative process, and therefore if you're trying to create something new, a new business venture, a new idea, it's going to be a natural part of what you do. The key is that as an entrepreneur, you cannot be paralyzed by the prospect of failure, where you're so worried about not doing the right thing, you don't do anything. And ultimately, you want to get to the point where you learn to fail intelligently. What I mean by failing intelligently is, yes, you may make a mistake, but you gave it a good effort, an intelligent effort, and you're learning from your mistakes and moving forward. I showed this comic down at the bottom about Charlie Brown. I'm just a big fan of Charlie Brown. And keeps in mind, Charlie Brown almost always strikes out. It's just a fact of life. That's why we love him. He's the lovable loser Charlie. But nonetheless, we still love him. He knows that in entrepreneurship, in life, yes, you're going to strike out from time to time, but it only takes one hit to be successful, even though that might not have been the one that just blew past him there. Entrepreneurship failure, depending on what studies look at, can range from 30% to 95%. And the reason why there's such a large gap is it depends on how you define what a startup is and how you define failure. Harvard Business Review, they're the one that say about 95%. The Small Business Association, they're the one that say about 30%. One reason why is the Small Business Association, or how they track what a startup is much more specific than how the Harvard Business Review tracks what a startup idea is. Nonetheless, it should be important to see that yes, failure is pretty common. This other graphic shows another perspective, and notice here, as you see this curve, that in the beginning, that first year, it gets tough. And you're going to start losing, it's going to start failing. But as time goes by, it tends to flatten out for the most part. Because remember, it's that flat part that tends to show that business is being more sustained, more successful. This class, while we're encouraging you to be creative, encourage you not to be afraid of failure, we do want to sometimes provide advice, particularly for the world of business, about how to increase your probability of success. Because that's all we can do. Only increase your probability, we cannot guarantee. Number one, know your business in depth. Know both the technical side of what it is you're doing. So if you're accounting services, you got to know your accounting. But also know the business side of it. Know your management accounting. Know what your costs are. Know those things. You got to develop a solid business plan. Not because business plans are the most important thing in the world, but because it demonstrates that you understand and put thought and idea into your idea and how to bring it forward. Manage those financial resources. Money is important, particularly in the early stages of a business. If you run out of your financial resources, your business is dead in the water. Understand your financial statements, and I know many people don't like accounting. I don't care. You need to understand the basics about your finance if you're going to be dealing in the world of business. Yes, you can hire an accountant to help you out from time to time, but that costs you money. And also, nobody's going to know it as well as you. Your accountant can give you advice, but you as a decision maker need to make a decision from the best data available, and that's going to come from your financial statements. You got to learn to manage people effectively. Learn to manage them both as their boss, both as a customer, both as a supplier, as well as any interaction you have with people. 6 is about strategy. You want to set your business apart from others because there's a lot of competition out there in anything you do. And lastly, look, remain positive. Keep that positive attitude because yes, times are going to get tough, but you're doing it for a reason. And we talked about those benefits earlier. Stay positive, push forward, keep trying, and you know what? Just like Charlie Brown, because despite striking out all those times, he did actually twice hit a home run in the 9th inning to win the game and was a hero. It may surprise people from time to time, but that's what the journey is all about. All right, and that's all the time I got for. Take care. I'll talk to you guys soon.